lot of the bureaucratic mandates over COVID really messed with the labor pool, and I think it disrupted, just the instability that it caused. I'm generally opposed to mandates. I think that most good solutions are generally a bottom-up solution rather than a top-down mandated solution. But I think that just massively disrupting large portions of the workforce, no wonder we're having all these problems now. And I don't see any easy way to fix it other than have the governments and have the bureaucracies back off and let people just solve their own problems because people seem to
Yeah.
generally be good at
It,
running their lives. That might be a very American position, though.
that's a huge topic. But you have to remember, the liberties that European governments, particularly Germany, are willing to take are much higher than Americans. You know, because in America, you run into the problem. Well, a lot of people, thankfully, still in the West, and they're trying everything to prevent that. And I think Corona made them realize when they compare to Europe that America isn't quite like Europe at all when it comes to that. The people are self-sufficient, and if you really put them into a corner, they have guns and they have self-reliance and independent mindsets, and they'll do their own thing. I mentioned I went to Germany at the beginning of March
Hmm.
2020. Everything was normal. I came back the third week of March, and I thought it was like a war zone. We arrived, streets were empty. There was a van from the police driving around the neighborhood with loudspeakers on the top, and it really sounded like it's like the most sinister sounding thing. Like, stay inside. You're not allowed to leave your house. And it's really like it felt like there's like a bomb that was going to be dropped. Like it was insane. And there you had no reservation about for weeks on end saying don't leave your house. You can buy groceries. You cannot walk. If you walk your dog, that's okay. But if you walk without walking your dog, you have to have a reason. And if you walk with somebody else, that's illegal because you can't meet somebody else. You get a fine. Like it's very like you go from freedom, normal life, and 3 weeks later, you're kind of on house arrest. Like you're really in jail. In America, they're just not that extreme. So when you see how quick, they're willing to do that, and then you have real characters. Like right now, this week, it's in the news in Germany again. They're saying, oh, there's a summer wave of corona, and if this keeps on, the winter is not going to be very good. We have to prepare for the winter. We need to make laws now that allow us to do the same thing about you know, stay-at-home orders and things like that to start this now so that we have it ready to go for the fall because it's so serious. It barely exists anymore. Like right now, it's normal life, and that's why like you have these extremes. America is very good at finding that middle ground.
Now, do you think Germany's going to try and lock down again? I know America's not. I mean, people here in America have just had enough. I mean, maybe in the big cities, but
It's concerning because if Germany gets the idea, you're going to have a lot of super big problems. Because Germany was real quick to go and shut things down, and they are paying dearly for it. From cars to airplanes, those are the main industries where they're that's really the main thing screwing with them right now. And what happens if you make a lockdown? The companies realize, okay, well, we're not going to make the same mistake we did where we fire everybody. That would be dumb. Um, so let's hire them. We'll keep them on the payroll, but we can't actually use them. So what money? It's just screwing the economy.
right. Yeah,
Not to mention, oh, they were so willing to close schools for weeks. Think of the effect that has on kids. Like that. That's serious.
well, I mean, they're saying that there's kids out there who can't associate with other people very well because they were isolated during that period of time that's most crucial for them to learn how to deal with other people. And there's concern about there being a long-term psychological problem.
100%. Because those are the most important years of your life. And Corona, it's almost 2 years. It's a lot of it. Yeah.
And my understanding is even in the big cities here in America, things are chilling out. I know that, like I said, in Oklahoma, one of the reasons I decided to basically exist in Oklahoma during all this is people paid lip service to the 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and then nobody cared, and we just partly because we don't have a population density, partly because people have different priorities out here, I guess, and maybe just America in general, because Americans are never very good at following rules. Uh, we have a different set of priorities, But I can't conceive of America locking down again. There would be blood in the streets, I think, if they tried.
No, for sure. And it's also a case of like, what does a lockdown really do? Unless you do it like China, you're not actually going to get that much of a result. Your numbers are going to go down, but they're not going to disappear. Even China, where they have the zero case policy, guess what? They keep having cases. It doesn't really work.
Well, China
Uh,
has the problem where because the people never really got exposed because of their crazy lockdowns. Now they don't have any sort of natural immunity,
yeah.
and I'm not sure if China even has a viable vaccine.
Yeah. Well, but the other thing though is who are you really trying to protect? Unless this virus is actually deadly, and it is deadly. But in general, you need to have conditions to make that the case. If you're healthy, especially if you're younger, it's you should be fine. And and since it's really more in that direction, it becomes almost in everybody's interest that as many healthy people as possible catch it. And maybe, we need more services to assist those who would like to isolate themselves from the virus to get food and deliver it and be able to work and whatever to facilitate that. But is it worth shutting down everything, for people that are arguably not affected at all by this or
Well,
very mild?
I know there's I've got an elderly friend. He's like, I don't know, like 95 years old,
Yeah.
and I go buy groceries for him whenever I go grocery shopping, because he's old and he's got some health problems, and it's probably best that he just hang out on his front porch and not be around too many people. He's got some concerns. Uh, Although I find that his level of concern varies on how much TV he's watched that day. The more he's watching the news, the more he'll be sitting on his front porch with a mask on, and when he hasn't been watching TV, then he's acting more normal. And I think a lot of people are being freaked out by the media. I try to watch as little news as I can, so I can stay better informed by not being brainwashed. But um, it seems like a no brainer. I'm young and healthy. I'll go buy his groceries. That way he doesn't have to take any risks. I drop it off in his garage, and it's no big deal. And I don't think there needs to be some sort of top-down government solution to that. I think just help your elders. It's
Yeah.
traditional values will and maybe it's because I'm Greek and we have a that big family structure thing, but help your elders out because someday you're going to be old and you're going to want some kid to help you out. So
Decent society.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing. You know, laissez-faire. It's a good economic policy. It's a great policy for politics in general. I think you nail it on the head. The less bureaucrats we have controlling things, the better things tend to work out. That's
So
why, look at the 1920s. It was America was in its heydays. You didn't have too many restrictions about anything, and and everything was cool. My favorite U.S. president, or at least one of, is Calvin Coolidge, because the guy did pretty much nothing, and and that was exactly what he should have done. The few things he did were they were in pretty good taste, and then life went on. Like that was effective.
well, and not to get overly political, but I kind of feel like if Biden had come into office and taken a very hands-off approach and just didn't mess with anything, I think America would be just rocking on along right now because people tend to take care of themselves here.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what do Germans feel about about the American government, about the current administration, and just all of that stuff. I know that he's not particularly popular in America right now, but but
That was
what
the
Germans
case
think?
where during Trump, the so-called impartial German media, and usually they really are pretty impartial. Like with inner German politics, they do a good job at that.
Yeah.
But it was just this solid, impenetrable wall of orange man bad.
Well, they hated Trump. I mean, Trump and Merkel didn't get along at all, did they?
Yeah, but it went beyond that. It was just Western media, including the German media, said orange man bad, and everybody, because in Germany we listen to everything that we're told, just accepted this, and most of the rest of Europe did too. And and so Orange Man bad, and that was where the buck stopped. So you ask if Biden is better. Well, yeah, they think he is because
because
Biden is an Orange Man.
the media's on his side. Because I was in an airport in I was passing through the airport in oh what I don't remember which it was in Germany, but I don't remember. I was on one of my Russia trips,
Probably
and
Frankfurt.
it might have been Frankfurt. I could look at the ticket. Anyway, what I was buying a hot dog, kind of a sandwich from this guy, and the what was interesting was so this guy, he saw my New York Yankees hat, so he instantly associated that with America. So he's like, you're American, right? I'm like, yeah, I'm from New York, and he's like, so you're a big Trump fan, right? It's like, well, I have complicated feelings on the subject, and this German guy was just a huge Trump supporter. I was like, I did not expect that. So that's why I was kind of curious, what they thought of him out there and what they're thinking of the current guy. Because I've had very limited interactions with Germans, but
That was yeah, that was a really big topic when Trump was in that. Uh, as soon as somebody in Europe, especially in Germany, found out that you were American, they were like, "So what do you think about Trump?" And they were really trying to figure out, like, is this possible that people like this guy? Like most of them, were like this guy, like this is a joke. Like this can't, like people can't seriously like this guy. And
right,
that's what this Western media virtue signaling does.
right. Well, and what I explained to the what I explained to this guy, this German man, was that it's not so much that Americans in my experience, the Americans who voted for Trump didn't so much like Trump, but they wanted to send a giant fuck you to the American government, and Trump was sort of a way of crapping in Mitch McConnell's swimming pool, and and that's sort of how I sort of described, Trump. The Americans that I saw who were big Trump supporters, mostly they just wanted to take a big old dump in the federal government, and I think you might have muted yourself. And so I was explaining to him it's a lot more complicated. I'm sure the German politics are very complicated, too. But maybe Europe sensationalizes American politics. I was just curious. Do they think that we were crazy, or do they think we're crazy now with Biden because Biden's just pulled a big 180 on all the Trump stuff?
Yeah. I think they had this whole Orange Man bad thing, but um, I wouldn't say that they're particularly pro Biden. I think that's more or less neutral.
Because I think
But
Biden's trying to be Obama, and Biden's just not Obama.
exactly, um, I think that's a pretty accurate description. But when it comes to really the political structure, at least, and how they work, if nothing else, I think Europe doesn't deceive itself that it thinks that it's a lot better. And to me, Germany is a little bit funky, but France is a good example. Like, do you want pure democracy? I'd say that they're probably about as close as you could get. France is pretty darn good. It's also about how voting occurs. Um, there's simply a lot of steps, and no system is perfect, but I would probably trust that the most if I had to pick one these days.
Whether the French system, take care
Yeah.
of their democracy the best.
Yeah. I mean, just in case of what real democracy might be, I'd say they're probably the closest to it.
Well, I mean, at least you get election results the same day.
Yeah, well, it's counted and it's done independently. It's done with paper. It's not sketchy, Scantron things. Um, and there's also just the structure of government. Same thing in Germany is kind of there's more steps involved. It's there's so much government, and we don't like having so much government. It's a bad thing in general, everywhere inherently. But I would argue that their system is a little bit more democratic. Let's try again.
We can start to wrap it up. We're going
Yeah, I
on
was
about an
gonna
hour and a
say
half.
my phone's gonna keep ringing the whole day at this rate.
Okay. Well, let's. What do you have any final thoughts? A final topic that you want to kind of touch on before we close this up? What are
Yeah, I mean,
what's kind of
I
what's the big trend that you see happening in the world?
see a trend happening, or one particular. There's a lot of trends. The world is a place where things happen. Duh, right? No,
Yeah.
but I'd say that my closing argument would really be, you know, be independent, keep a foot in several places, look at it from your own seat in the back somewhere. Don't you know? Because when you look at things from an outside perspective, I think you really probably get the closest view. And there is no right and wrong in life, if you ask me. I think a lot of it um, is really just a case of people doing the best, and that could mean for themselves, sometimes for their country if they're pretty honest. And philosophy is really that's really more of a philosophical topic. And so I really just like to compare different ideas to one another and see what works. That's kind of like my argument with the EU and money. Um, Switzerland should be right, but if you look at the consumer and the way it affects life, Germany wins. So that's you know things in on paper don't really work the same way they do in real life.
Yeah, you've always been pretty pragmatic, at least in my experience. And is that more from your American side, or is that more from the German side? Are the Germans pragmatic, or are they still too obsessed with their rules?
Germans are not. They are obsessed with their rules. I think that that's going to stay for a while. If anything, that's one positive from the immigrant thing is that these immigrants don't exactly follow the rules nowadays, so maybe they're learning to be a little bit more chill. No, I would say that being kind of based, if you will, comes from being a New Yorker. New Yorkers are based, most of them at least. Maybe
Yeah,
some of them. I don't know if you even say most. But it teaches you there's so much bullshit in New York that you kind of, if you want to survive, if you want to be a real person with your own ideas and a somewhat successful life, you have to see through it. And like, I went to Brooklyn Tech, it's one of the biggest high schools in America, 6,000 kids. And so that was a place where it was like mini bureaucracy,
right.
through all the, yeah, I think we had 20 assistant principals in that place, And when you deal with that little bureaucracy, it trains you for the big game. And I think that really helped me a lot
What
because people tell you one thing, and then reality is so different. You have to teach yourself what reality is and how to handle that.
Yeah, what I found, I guess where I'll wrap it up. What I found growing up in New York is you've got really two kinds of New Yorkers. You have sort of an affluent class that live in kind of their la la land, that are largely ideological and aren't necessarily connected with reality, and then you have just like the people who are in the trenches, whether they're in business or working class, but they're having to constantly solve problems and find ways to get through all the complexity of dealing with a major city, dealing with bureaucracy, how to beat the system, and those guys tend to be very pragmatic. Um, but I think that the affluent people who don't have to suffer consequences, they tend to. I think you can only really be blindly ideological if you don't. And this is true on both the left and the right. I think you can only afford a blind ideology if you don't have to suffer life's consequences when you screw up. And in business, if you make a mistake and you lose a bunch of money, I mean that's your ass. I mean it's your money. You can't. You have nobody to blame but yourself. And I think that's why a lot of people tend to be the people in the real world who have to really fight for their survival. They tend to be very no bullshit, regardless of their culture.
I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Well, Paul,
Um,
Paul, this is great catching up with you. I've been wanting to do this for a while, and I know that you're a pretty busy guy. We could try doing this again sometime. Um,
yeah,
so I'm gonna wrap it up and thank everybody for watching. If you've survived through an hour and a half of us talking about a variety of topics with Paul here. And Paul, you have anything in closing you want to say to the
no,
world?
it's been a pleasure. Thank you all for watching. Yeah, no, this is fun. We can definitely do that again.
All right, and hit me up if you're next time you're back in America. We'll barbecue.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you everyone, and goodbye. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked the video. If you did like it, subscribe to my channel and share it with your friends. You can also check out my website, bobtheorc.com, where you can download a free copy of my dad's book and some other things. Have a nice day. Goodbye.